Welcome back to another episode of the Pilots of the Caribbean podcast, where we talk about everything drones and the persons that are using them in the Caribbean. As usual, like, follow, subscribe, click that button. Now, this week, we are heading across to the UK, and I'm going to be talking to Mr. Drew Watney, who is the business development and sales executive for a company called AutoNaut. Now, AutoNaut is doing some very interesting and very innovative work in the Caribbean. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Hi, Drew. How are you doing? Thank you for coming on to the Pilots of the Caribbean podcast, man.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem at all. Drew, I just want to jump right into it. How will we start about introducing yourself to the audience?
No problem at all. My name is Drew Watney. I work for a company called AutoNaut USV. We manufacture USVs, unmanned, uncrewed surface vessels out of the UK. And I've actually just recently joined the company in the last 6 months. My background's actually from the yachting industry. I used to be a ship's captain, and I used to be involved in yacht sales. And they've just taken me on at AutoNaut as a business development manager and sales for AutoNaut USV. So I'm pretty happy to be here.
That's cool, man. So you used to captain yachts?
Yeah. I used to work on, I used to crew on super yachts in the Mediterranean some years ago. And then I ended up actually skipping my own vessel for 4 or 5 years out of Palma, Mallorca in Spain.
Sound like fun. So
yeah, man,
what sorry, go ahead.
So it was a live-off vessel. So I used to stay in a villa during the evenings, and it was more of a day boat for the owners. And but their main itinerary was basically to Ibiza and the south of France, and then back to Palma, Mallorca, most of the week. So I spent most of my time basically just jumping around the islands in the Balearics in the Mediterranean. So yeah, quite a fun position, quite a fun boat to run.
Yeah, that sounds like a nice life. So what brought you from that to AutoNaut now?
Yeah, well, from that position, I actually moved to Australia, where I continued in yachting, and I actually fell into sales there. So I ended up being a yacht broker out of Sydney Harbour. And I worked for a company called Ray White Marine, and we were Ferretti Group dealers. So Ferretti Group is an Italian shipyard that sells production luxury yachts up to 200 feet. And we were the dealers in Australia. So I did that for about 6 years after my skippering episode. And then from there, I just moved over to England. My partner, who's English, she's Cornish. And that's when I found myself in the southwest of England. And I came across AutoNaut, and they were looking for a guy in sales. And, it's a completely different industry, but because it involves a lot of maritime activity, they were quite, the role suited me quite well because of my yachting background.
Okay, so if I have any market for a yacht, you could hook me up.
I could help out, yeah.
That's cool, man. So jumping into the AutoNaut USV, what exactly is the AutoNaut USV?
Yeah, so a good way of thinking about it is, well, let me just give you a description of what it looks like. It's a water drone about 5 meters long. It looks a little bit like a submerged kayak, but a lot more streamlined, and obviously a lot bigger than a kayak too. But all the action is happening inside and underneath. So it has hydrofoil skegs underneath the water. They use the waves motion to go through the water. And then inside the AutoNaut, it can carry up to 250 kilos of payload, which is where we load all the batteries and sensors. And whatever application it's being used for will decide what sensors go in the boat. And then on the outside, we normally put like the radar equipment and some of the sensors that'll sit on the mast. So I'm sure you're going to upload some photos of an AutoNaut to the podcast, so you get to see if that wasn't a very good description. But what it is it's a wave-propelled, solar-powered, unmanned, uncrewed surface vessel that we can just send out into the ocean for like 4 months at a time. up to 4 months, unassisted, and it's steered by satellite. And whatever sensors are on there, we get all those readings and that data via satellite. And then we basically sell that information, that data to our client.
Okay. So wave-propelled. So you're talking about when it goes over a wave, that's what pushes it forward, right?
Yeah. So I'll give you a little demonstration here. So it's sitting in the water like this. It uses the waves. And then when it goes up and down over the waves, peaks and the troughs, the skegs underneath the water are like cutting through. It uses hydrofoil skegs to cut through the water. So if it's flat, if the ocean's completely flat, so you're going to have a problem. It won't be moving very fast. But the bigger the waves, the faster the AutoNaut will move through the water because it's getting that wave action, driving it forward.
Okay. But all right. So now we usually, we're looking about, think of the sea and we usually think it has waves, but sometimes it could be like perfectly flat. So in an instance where you don't have any waves at all, is it that it doesn't move? Yeah,
we got we have the small thruster system or a small engine system attached to the back of the AutoNaut 2, which is battery powered. And when it's really small and the AutoNaut's not moving fast enough, we'll activate the thruster and we'll get it moving that way. There's actually not very many instances that it's dead flat out there. We'd always normally have some sort of movement. But for example, if we're doing like a harbor launch and we want to get it out the harbor, which is obviously very flat, we'll use the thruster to get it out and into the breakers. And then once it gets a bit bigger, it'll start moving on its own. And then you deactivate the thruster because it's quite power hungry, the thruster. So we don't like to use it very much, just for emergencies and just to get it out of the harbor.
Okay. And what does the launching process look like? So what is the size? What's the dimensions of one of these things? Size and weight?
Yeah, sure. So we actually started off with 3.5 meter back in the day. Okay. And since then, we've graduated to a 5 meter. This is because our power requirements increase and we want more surface area. So natural progression for the AutoNaut is to get bigger. So at the moment, we're at a 5 meter and we're actually looking now at future projects, and there might be an 11 meter, 12 meter AutoNaut in the build, which is pretty exciting because we can really up the power. We can increase the surface area for solar panels. But yeah, the loading and recovery process for a 5 meter AutoNaut is relatively easy. We could do harbor launches. We could put it on a small trailer, just wheel it off the beach. And you can manhandle that. It's only about 250 kilos, so about 4 or 5 people could put it in the water, just manual handling. And then another popular way is just off the back of a boat. They'll just crane it straight in with a small crane, straight into the water, and then let us do its thing. A lot of our scientific expedition projects have done that. For example, we went to the South Pole, and they just launched it off a big expedition boat and put it in the water and let it go do its thing, and then brought it back to us.
Cool. All right. So I have so many questions, so bear with me. I was doing some research on this and, it was the technology looks so interesting. Right. So you get in the water and now you could stay out at sea for up to 4 months. Yeah. But I'm assuming that, there's solar panels on the surface of it, the top of it that is above the water. But so like in the drone world, we've traditionally had an issue where we've seen persons try to put solar panels on, the fixed wings in an attempt to get them to fly longer, but the charging efficiency isn't very great. How does that work out for the AutoNaut?
Yeah, so with us, the AutoNaut's max speed is like 2 knots. It's really low noise, low power signature. So solar power works for us because we've got so much time out there. We're not drawing a lot. The AutoNaut's cruising through 2 to 3 knots. And if it's sunny, we're getting a lot of sun. And it's just charging those batteries up during all those daylight hours. And we're not using a lot of power. So with UAV, obviously it's high draw. You guys don't fly very long. You fly 30 minutes. Solar panels are going to be more of a hindrance to you guys than actually getting power from it. We're just a big, slow, heavy boat, and you could just hook up all that deck space with solar power, so it really works for us. And the way that solar power is going these days with the technology just getting better and better, we keep finding new panels that are just giving more and more power. So we constantly upgrading the Autonauts with these new solar panels. And it's allowing us to do different things. So for an example, we can now put like live streaming cameras on board, so proper 4K cameras. And we just linked up Starlink to one of our Autonauts, which is pretty cool. So that opens up a bunch more applications. But yeah, we're getting to the point where we just like could get these things on board, and then now we're going to wait for like another way to find more power so we can put more things on. But if you keep it quite simple with regards to sensors and things that you're looking at for what your applications, there's a lot we could do. Yeah.
Okay. How do you manage? How do you manage the batteries in terms of the extreme temperatures? So I know you said like you were in Antarctica, and we know that certain types of batteries hate cold weather, and then you have the extremes where I don't know what sort of places you've been to in terms of heat, but I know it's an enclosed space, and then you have these batteries sealed in there. How you manage controlling batteries and temperatures, and how they respond to that?
Right. Yeah, really good question. So with regards to the batteries, we haven't encountered any issues with the cold. There's quite a lot of space in the bilges of the Autonaut, right. So you haven't got like a lot on top of each other. So no issues with the batteries as of yet, especially not the cold. I haven't been informed that it affects performance at all. But interesting one on the solar panels. When we do go into the northern, like the far northern hemispheres and the southern hemispheres, where we struggle for light, if we have a couple cloudy days consistently, it can be an issue of power. We might have to shut a few things down. We might have to like run dead ship for a little while, like turn the sensors off. Although that's never had to happen. That is like emergency procedure. If we do get like a week of cloud and we're not keeping up with the power, we will switch off a few things. And it's something we found with Barbados and the hot weather. We found that we had an old style of doing the panels where they were close on the deck and then built into the deck. And we found when we upgraded to this new brand and we lifted the panels off the ground, off the deck, and so they had that air going underneath them. It kept them cool. Yeah, it kept them cooler. And the cooler you can keep a solar panel, the more power you get. So that was an interesting find with our upgrade. We've actually got more power now by lifting them up off the deck and allowing a bit of a breeze underneath. We're getting a lot more power from them. I heard you mention Barbados, and before we get into that, I just want to go back to control. So, you guys said you have the ability to monitor, control it from wherever and use Starlink, but what is the control system or control setup for AutoNaut look like? How do you tell it to go do this anyway? Yeah, so we're using a couple different brands at the moment for our command and control unit. And how it looks with the current one is it's run off a desktop. So any PC computer, Mac computer, you upload the software and it links to the Autonaut via Iridium, which is a form of satellite communication. And what Iridium does is it's short bursts of information at a time. So you can have, you're getting like bits and pieces of information sporadically. And that's how we drive the Autonaut. So we'll have 24 hours a day. When on mission, we have 24 hours a day, guys driving the Autonaut, and they have it in a control station. There might be a few monitors with that. It looks like a GPS. Like if you look at your phone, that you got your GPS map or your chart, similar to what you see on like a ship. And that's how we're driving. You're setting up waypoints, and the Autonaut will follow those waypoints or nautical positions. And you set it a course. Some guys might want to do laps around a certain area, or they're just trying to get from point A to point B somewhere. You just set the waypoints and then you monitor. And a lot of the time we actually don't do this ourselves. We train our clients because it's quite an easy process. We train them to steer the Autonaut and they take over from us in doing that. And it's only when we're chartering, like which we're renting out an Autonaut to somebody, that we'll volunteer or offer them our services for piloting. But normally we hand it over to the client, we give them training and they can do it themselves.
Okay. So, like in the instance of your client being Barbados, that would be the Meteorological Society.
Yeah.
How is it being used by the Barbados Meteorological Society?
Yeah, it's very, very interesting project over there, and a big client of ours. We've trained, so every time we hand over an AutoNaut to them, we'll do training, and we'll just update everybody. And they've got a whole dedicated crew there of guys who are pilots, and they drive them all themselves. So with the Barbados crew at BMS have got a lot of experience in driving AutoNauts, and the only time we hear from them is if we need to assist something, or they got some questions, or they need some help with something, then we'll assist them. But most of the time, they do it all themselves. And to answer your question, what are they doing with our AutoNauts over there? They're in the process of replacing all their static weather buoys with our AutoNauts. So actually, come July, they're going to have a fleet of 6 AutoNauts, and they'll all be cruising around Barbados, getting in front of the weather, just like a weather buoy would do, except they move, So if there's something coming, like a big hurricane, they'll put the AutoNauts in front of them so they can get the best on it. So it's
okay.
Barbados BMS is like leading the charge. They're really progressive, and they're doing some stuff that a lot of the other Met officers aren't doing, which is great. So it's exciting for us too.
So, and based on where Barbados sits, they usually, maybe not always in direct path, but they have the most exposure to hurricanes. What kind of conditions could the AutoNaut operate in?
Yeah, you're right, because they're right on the fringe there of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
There's the big Atlantic out there. So we're ready. We're rough weather tested, hurricane tested. I don't think we're like Category 5. If there's a Category 5 coming in, I would advise BMS or whoever has an AutoNaut to probably tuck tail and come in. But we can handle, I think, Category 1 and 2 up to the really strong winds. It's being tested. So if an AutoNaut goes over and rolls, it can self-right itself. We've designed it in a way that you put all the heavy equipment like batteries and gear in certain places. And so if it does capsize, it rights itself. And we've had a couple do it, and they've righted themselves, which is comforting to know that they could do that. And we've also rough tested an AutoNaut with ice. So we've literally taken blocks of ice and just smashed it against an AutoNaut. That was a case study we did before we sent one of our AutoNauts to the South Pole. We had tested for ice damage and how the hull would handle high impact. Yeah. So.
Okay. So BMS would send them out, they collect the data, and you said they have a fleet, so they do it in like rotation. So you don't always have one out all the time. You have like a couple, and then one may be on its way back in and one on its way out, kind of thing.
Yeah. That's pretty much how they do it. There's always one that's coming in for maybe a bit of a clean underneath. Sometimes when they are quite long, you can get a bit of growth underneath the hull. So you want to get that in nice and clean. There might be a sensor or two that needs to be looked at. So there's always a couple out and a few in on rotation. That's a good sort of, that's good practice.
Okay. So then they sit out there, they collect whatever meteorological information and they send it back to BMS, and that way they could do the weather testing or weather checking or forecasting, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
But all that data that the guys are getting, like sea temperature, humidity, air temperature, ocean temperature, all the Met Office information comes in live. So it's all streamed live. They're getting that information in real time.
Okay. Have you ever had an instance where, you've had a curious animal try to figure out, what is this thing floating in the water?
No, I mean, not that we know of. We've had a few close calls of boats. The AutoNauts do have a radar reflector, which is basically something you put on a boat. It makes your radar image when you say you got another ship looking at you on the radar. Right. We have these reflectors that make us look like we're really big. So if someone is looking at the radar and they see us out there, they're going to think we're quite a big boat. But then, like when they look for us with their eyes, they're not going to see us because we're so small, right? But on radar, we're very large. But we have had a few instances where boats have come very close, and sometimes just to come look what we're doing and see what we are, because we're quite unusual looking. If you saw from the side of a boat, you'd be like, what is this? Most people don't know. And how's it moving? Because all the gears underneath the water. So you just see this thing moving along. You don't even know how it's doing it,
Yeah. Okay. So, but in terms of the response to a ship, there is, I mean, it'll take a little while to maneuver its way out of or to avoid or something like that, right?
Yeah. We rely heavily on boats seeing us and moving out of our way because we're quite slow in the water, 2 to 3 knots.
Okay.
So we rely on other boats checking their radar, seeing us, identifying us with binoculars, and then altering course to avoid us.
Are there any other Caribbean islands that are using like the AutoNaut for any purpose at all?
No, not as of yet. But we have a big conference coming up in Miami next week. It's called the Hydromate LAC 25. And it's a big convention for all the Met offices from the Caribbean, South America, and North America. And we're all meeting in Miami. And we're actually presenting there. We're going to be doing a presentation to the show. We've got a stand. And we're hoping, fingers crossed, we're going to snag a few more Met offices and get some more customers in the Caribbean and the Americas.
Okay, cool. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Was some of the more, let's say, non-traditional, because I would consider like what the Met Office is using it for kind of like the standard use case, right? What are some of the like non-standard, with any bounds of whatever you could talk about, use cases that you've seen the AutoNaut being used for?
Yeah, sure. No, there's lots I can talk about. I mean, Met Ocean is just one of the sectors that we serve as one of the applications. We've got big business in PAM monitoring, which is passive acoustic monitoring. So, and that could cover a number of things because we like mammal monitoring, noise pollution. So one of our big sectors is environmental, and they love to listen to whales, love to listen to dolphins and wildlife because we hang these really, really fancy equipment off the side of the AutoNaut that listens. And because we have such a low noise signature, it's really popular for that purpose. So big clients in environmental, PAM monitoring, and then in oil and gas and the mining industry, the guys have to be really conscious there about the noise pollution they make. So what they normally do is they get these buoys that they hang the noise monitoring equipment off, and they'll monitor like how much noise the companies are making, and then send off the information to let them adjust it or increase it. But with us, we get this equipment on the AutoNauts, which gets to move around all the different sites, and they offer also real-time monitoring because we got these. Obviously, all our information gets sent by a satellite in real time. So the guys really like using us because we can monitor their noise, and not just in one position, in multiple positions, and we can feed them their information they need in real time, which allows them to keep drilling. So basically, they don't have to stop and wonder whether they are being too noisy or not, or allows them to carry on drilling, and we can tell them if they're being noisy or not in real time. So that's another application. Yeah, that's oil and gas. Yeah. And then another sector that we are quite popular in is communications gateways. So a lot of the universities and companies that have like subsea sensors and monitoring equipment that people have like on the, example, there's a company who has a subsea sensor like 2 kilometers deep up near Scotland, and they hired us to take an AutoNaut out there and get it above the sensor and suck the information out as a communications gateway, send it via satellite to the client live. And traditionally, they would normally have to get a massive ship with, all the equipment that you need, the crew, diesel engines. They send the ship out to do the same thing. And obviously that's a lot more expensive. You got crew, you got people, it's a whole thing, hundreds of thousands of dollars, whatever it costs. With an AutoNaut, it just takes a bit longer because we don't go as fast, that you can send the AutoNaut out there for a fraction of the price. No crew needed, really safe, eco-friendly, zero carbon, and we get the same job done. Just takes a little bit longer.
That's really cool. And then if it was done faster, you could just kind of like carry it out closer to the site and then just leave it.
Yeah, 100%. And that was communications gateway. There's also some applications that the defense companies are looking at now. We're getting a lot of defense inquiries. That's not something we've done before, but we're looking at these guys like to listen for illegal fishing, submarines, things like that. They want to know who's out there and what people are doing. And we're really good for that. Like I said, our noise signature is very low. So you can put that kind of equipment on an AutoNaut. It's slow and steady, just moves really quietly. And defense are like sort of taking an interest in us now because we're very, I'd say one of our best selling points is endurance. So we're very long endurance and we're tough. We can take some bad weather, nothing's going to happen. And we're very quiet. So that's what people in defense are starting to really like about us.
Okay, cool. I think that like application like defense and security maritime wise could be a benefit to the Caribbean as well, because some islands have some serious, drug transshipment issues, and being able to have something out in the water that could identify, vessels that are not supposed to be in a certain area, things like narco subs that you could listen out for. Those might be some interesting use cases for the Caribbean as well.
Definitely. And we're all ears. We'd love to hear from people like that. If they have any questions, that's the sort of area we really want to head into. We want to, Barbados is such a hot spot at the moment. There's such good activity there with BMS, and the guys are being really, they're putting it all on national TV, and we're getting a lot of nice exposure and some good inquiries because of that, which is nice. So we'd love to do some more business in the Caribbean.
That's nice, man. And I find that you do see Barbados pop up on like Drew News for a lot of innovations, and hopefully some other Caribbean islands take note and follow suit with what they're doing over there.
Thanks to you guys. Thanks to the pilots.
Yeah, man, no, not a problem. How long does it take to make one?
Yeah, around 6 to 7 months. We can have you a whole, depending on how busy we are. But yeah, about 6 months is a good sort of ballpark indicator.
Okay. That's cool. That's interesting. With regards to like custom, well, it may not be custom because each one of them may be more or less different. Do you guys provide all your sensors, or is it that a client with a specific use case, you find a way to work that sensor into the system? Yeah.
So, a little confusing. So, AutoNaut is actually we're owned by a company called Sage. And Sage is a marine technology company. They do a lot of the PAM stuff I was talking about. And they've got a whole catalog of like really fancy equipment and sensors and stuff. We use a lot of their equipment on our AutoNaut. They own us. And so we'll kit an AutoNaut out. We put a lot of Sage equipment on there too. But we're not limited to that. We're allowed to use third-party sensors and equipment, obviously, depending on the application. So if we need a special sensor and it's third party, we don't have a problem with using other companies. We work with a lot of different companies with regards to technology. Okay.
And what is it? So you buy one of these and you guys is delivered and you guys provide the training and you send it out. What does also things like maintenance and stuff look like?
Yeah, there's obviously maintenance with anything that sits in the water and the salt water for long periods. You're going to need maintenance. So it's not very complicated. It's nothing like a boat. I'll tell you that much. My luxury yachts, they were like up every few months. Tens of thousands of dollars you're throwing at these things. But AutoNauts are a lot more resilient and a lot tougher. You've just got the hull integrity you have to maintain and just check for leaks every now and then. But it operates the same way as a boat. You've got bilge pumps. So if there is a leak and some water comes in, it just gets pumped straight out. But the main things you're looking at when you bring it in is just to clean the underside, make sure the hydrofoils are all still turning and operational. And then whatever malfunctions you've had on your equipment, your technology, you just fix them. And you'll see that because on your command and control screen, when you're driving the AutoNaut, it'll tell you what's not working and what is working. So let's just say if a sensor fails, you'll be like, oh, that's not working anymore. Next time it comes in, you'll need to check that, replace that. And that's how it works. So you bring it in and you just update a few things, change some, fix some sensors, change some light bulbs, whatever needs to be done, and then send it back out again. So maintenance periods are like once every few months. and it might just be minor items, small items. Yeah. Most of the time with Barbados, because it's a really good running example, when they bring them in, they might just call us and we'll do a call over the phone, just explain to them something that needs to be explained. The only time we head over there is when we're delivering a boat or we're upgrading like big equipment. So they normally do it all. They normally do it all on their own. It's not like a technical process. It's just changing components or fixing components. So,
and is there like a usable lifespan? Well, is there a usable lifespan? So let's say the hull would last for 15 years, but every 5 you should change all the batteries. Is there something like that?
Yeah. That's a really good example. Yeah. Batteries, they've got a couple of years of life, as long as they don't run dead all the time and then you're having to recharge them. They can last for years and years. And then when they sort of lose their integrity, you just replace the batteries with the latest and greatest. Solar panels, solar panels can go for ages, but you might want ones that are like, giving you much more power. You'd upgrade them. Example, BMS has just upgraded their batteries and their solar panels after a couple of years. And it's a great upgrade because it's like allowed them to now hook up Starlink and cameras. And so it's really great. You move along with the technology. You got a hull that'll last like 10 to 15 years, 20 years, whatever. But when the technology gets better, just bring it in, get something new, put it on board. It's like a nice analogy is imagine the automatic pickup truck. You can just load anything you want on it. If you want the latest and greatest of this, put it on there. If you want different sensors, you could change the whole application. You could be a mid-ocean or AutoNaut, and then you strip that all out and you could be putting it in for defense. You could be putting in a whole bunch more sensors and switch up its application. So, yeah.
Okay. That is very, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So what's next for AutoNaut? I know you said that you guys are working on larger models. Is there anything else in the works for you guys?
Yeah, glad you asked. And that's what we're looking to do. We are, as far as innovation goes, we're looking to go larger. If you look across at all these USV companies around the world, especially the ones that are close competition to us, you'll notice like their gradual progression has been to get bigger. So that's our next step. We just need more power. We need more space. And so our next step is going to be probably 11.5 meter AutoNaut. And that's going to allow us to do, it's going to allow us to do a lot more with regards to power. Yeah.
Right.
So we're pretty excited about that. These sorts of things take time. There's R&D, you got this funding. You want to get a few clients that want one or two of these, so we can build it for them. But it's in the pipeline, and we've got the drawings already, and that's going to be our next move, just to 12 meters, which is that's a whole other story. And that just fits into a 40-foot container, and the beach launching, beach launching is not going to be as easy anymore. It's because it's like 1,000 kilos, it'll be a bit heavier.
Yeah, that actually just occurred to me because now you have the issue of how do you move this thing around the larger and larger it gets.
I think keeping it simple, we're going to try and keep it under 40 feet so it could fit into a 40-foot container, and that would make it a lot easier getting around the world. But yeah, you'll see if you check out the other competition, you'll see that all going larger. So just bigger, still unmanned, but a lot more power, a lot more distance. Exciting.
It is. It sounds that way. So you have had an interesting journey into this because usually we do drone operators and drone pilots, but I try not to limit the podcast to just that. So, things like other unmanned fields are also very interesting. Yeah. But one of the questions that I usually ask my guests is, what is one thing that you know now that you wish you knew before you got into this field?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. Now, I didn't realize that I've come from a yacht sales background and luxury yachting and, real expensive toys, quick deals, we buy a boat, there's champagne and it's like, woo, it's crazy. Toys, luxury toys and they're quick deals. You can settle a boat in a week. You can settle a $10 million boat in 1 week to 10 days.
If you want it, go with it.
yeah, like you want to buy this, we can have this for you, on the water in a week, And so there's quick sales, real exciting, fast pace. Something I didn't realize with USD, government funding, grants. There's a lot of paperwork. It's real slow. It's like I came in sort of guns blazing, thinking I'd be doing deals real quickly, and I didn't realize I hit the brakes real hard because everything here happens a bit more in a process and a little bit slower. So that was something I didn't realize, and it's sort of slowed me down a bit now, and I've got to be a bit more patient and make sure everything's perfect with regards to the process. Yeah.
Joys of bureaucracy.
Yeah, that's it. A lot of government organizations, obviously, how that is. Things take forever. And, we deal with a lot of universities and funding cycles. And so just got to slow down, make sure your paperwork's, in check, and the deals eventually get done. They just take a lot longer.
Yeah. That's a different thing based on, the field that you came in from.
Yeah.
Right. So, Drew, where can persons learn more about AutoNaut? Where could they find you guys? Where could they reach out to you if you want to get information about the product?
Sure. Yeah. We just, we got most of the social channels. We're on LinkedIn, AutoNaut USV. We got Instagram, AutoNaut USV, and our website, which is just being revamped as we speak. That'll be up again. That's also just usv.com. And if you I've got our sister company or our governing company, sage.com. There's a lot of information on there about AutoNaut too, but those are the main channels.
Nice. Drew, thank you very much. This has been a pleasure. And I hope that the people taking in this interview have learned a lot about, other use cases of unmanned vehicles and unmanned systems that are being used worldwide and in the Caribbean. So thank you very much, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
No problem. And we'll talk soon. Hopefully, when AutoNaut launches that 40-foot, 30-something foot version, we could get a video of you guys trying to fit it into a container.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, man. Thank you very much.
All right, bye.
Take care, Drew.
Cheers.
You
Bye.
too.